This is real wisdom from a couple who lives it out every day. Spend 3 minutes around the Rosbergs and you'll be thirsty for more in your marriage. You'll also be affirmed and encouraged.
For 40-plus years, Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg have been inspiring marriages throughout the world. These seasoned radio hosts are now hosting their popular podcast, Your Marriage Coaches. Coupled with their many popular and best-selling books and their marriage coaching and training, Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg are equipping couples everywhere with tools and encouragement for a great marriage.
These two have been an asset to my marriage with their biblical marriage applications, advice, and guidance. Let Dr. Gary and Barbie help you get the more out of your marriage.
Won't you partner with the Rosbergs today? Your generous donation will support their mission of championing marriages for the cause of Christ by coaching husbands and wives to experience a great marriage for a lifetime and for the sake of the next generation. We appreciate your prayers and support for this ministry. Find out how you can come alongside the Rosbergs when you go to americasfamilycoaches.com. Just search the top of the index for the Donate tab.
Thank you, Dr. Gary and Barbie, for sharing your wisdom, your advice, your help, and your love and laughter with the world. You are tenderly caring for hearts, resulting in happy, healthy homes. So grateful for you.
We appreciate your prayers and support for this ministry. Go to americasfamilycoaches.com today to find out how you can support this life-giving ministry.
Welcome to the Rosbergs, your marriage coaches. Join Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg, America's family coaches, who bring 4 decades of empowering marriages across the U.S. and internationally for this podcast to equip you and your partner with encouragement and tools for a great marriage. Here now are your hosts, Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg.
We're so grateful to be back with you. We're Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg, and we are your marriage coaches. And Barbie, it's great to be in the studio.
Wonderful to be in the studio. Today, we're going to be talking about what gets in the way of connecting and having a great marriage. We're going to unpack like 6 saboteurs that can arise, block you, but we're not trying to discourage you. We want to give you hope today, because once we understand what they are, we identify them, and we all probably have 1 or 2 elements of it, then we can be intentional and choose to break through.
So no matter how strong your marriage is, we want you to be teachable on this. We want you to be alert to this. We want you to be willing to do a heart check and, guys, kind of a gut check on how am I doing? If I was to be honest, which of these 6 or which 2 or 3 of these 6 are we most at risk for? Now, keep in mind, during different stages of life, they will vary, but make no mistake, you're going to get attacked. If you're in a biblical covenant marriage, you have an adversary. That adversary is Satan, pure and simple. We know that God doesn't fear that. God doesn't shy away from that. God prevails. We know the end of the story, and we can rely upon him. But your marriage, if it's a covenant marriage and you are sold out for the cause of Christ, you can't sit in a hammock and just drink lemonade and hope everything just happens. So if you want to be intentional, be purposeful about connection, loving your spouse, and being found faithful in a biblical marriage, then you need to be alert at what these saboteurs are. And that's what we're going to unpack today.
Mm-hmm. We are. You know, you might have started out in marriage and, it was so strong and so good. But here's the thing. If you're going to have a great marriage, then you need to be so intentional about continuing to grow, continuing to choose to make it better, and not to be blinded, but to wake up. One of the very first things we're going to unpack is that of pace. Pace. This world is going fast. Everyone in our family is going fast. Mother, father, husband, wife, grandparents in our situation, your friendships, your hobbies, the things that fill your time, we're all going at a fast pace. And oftentimes we can run parallel, Gary, in our homes.
Yeah, we can. I was having breakfast this morning with a good friend of mine, and he's got 5 kids. I mean, they're a senior in high school and then beyond. So he's got 2 that are married. 3 of them are professionals. And we were unpacking this issue of pace. And he said, literally trying to get everybody together, trying to get on the same page with all of the activity of all of those different people. So you look at athletics, you look at scholarship and different school issues, you look at job issues, you look at other relationships, that they're dating, or then they step into a marriage, and then there's another family that they're interacting with. You look at going to school while you're working. That was an issue for us. I was in grad school and also working, and then had kids. Now, the pace is not for the faint of heart. It pins your ears back. And so when a couple turns to one another and says, can we talk? Can we connect? Can we spend time together? Sometimes they're just sheer worn out from the pace. Other times they say yes and they have good intention, but they're preoccupied. Pace alone is killing marriages. And yet what we know is there's a remedy to it. And Jesus gives us the remedy. And it's in Matthew 11:28. When Jesus says, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. And we know that it's only the incredible provision of a relationship with Christ and the power of the Holy Spirit that gives us rest, let alone trying to just manage all the pace that comes at us all the time. And Barb, it's a hard thing for every one of us.
Well, it is. And I want to encourage that when you talk to your spouse, like Gary was just talking a few minutes ago, and if they think they're in trouble, they're not going to want to talk to you. They're not going to want to sit down with you. So I think it takes a very gentle ramp up, a softness. And it might even sound like, I really love you, and I really love me, and I really love us. And it's us that I want to have a win today. And it might sound like we need to be more intentional about making time, having margins. I used to say, leave plenty of white space in your calendar, because that's the place where you breathe in, you breathe out, and you become alert to what you're missing out on in your marriage. And then go to your mate once you have identified that and choose to be intentional. Like, do we need a date night once a week? Do we need chair time once a week? How often can we check in during the day to just say, how are you doing? Because I don't know about you, but I need to be connected to as well. It takes both of us.
Well, and it means that you've got to create margin. Mm-hmm. I remember there was a book called Margins out 25, 30 years ago. And I had a lot of my clients when I was a counselor reading that book. And it talks about boundaries, putting boundaries around yourself, boundaries around your marriage, boundaries around your family. And when you put all those boundaries up, you know what? That's quite an intentionality as it is. But if you don't have margin and the pace keeps you in kind of the red line area of like an engine that is under too much pressure, and you're not checking the oil, you're not checking the water, you're not checking the tires, you're not checking the systems, and you're just redlining, you do that for too long and you begin to burn out. So getting a handle around pace is one of the things, and really when you look at the 6 of these, in some ways it's the easiest one. And you're going, the easiest one, it sounds like the hardest one. But it's learning how to margin your pace. And it means you need to say no to some things. Certainly when you're putting something else on your plate, you need to ask yourself the question, what do I need to take off my plate? So if I'm going to add coaching this kid's soccer team, what am I going to steal from? And what we often do is we just add, and we don't delete. Yeah. So pace is number 1. Barbie, number 2 is technology.
It's technology. And how often do we are looking at our phones and we're scrolling and we're scrolling and we're scrolling. And yet one of us is in the room saying, I need attention. You're giving more attention to telephone or screen time or your computer than you are to me. And isn't it amazing how this wonderful device can be very divisive in our marriage? I was thinking earlier too, Gary, as we were preparing our notes, that sometimes when we just have space or we have time on our hands, we start scrolling. Well, how often do we scroll not only with technology, but other things too? And we begin to fill up our calendars and our time, especially with technology. It's kind of the easy way out, but we are isolating, folks. And God made us to connect to one another. He made us to be human and long for the longing of being intimate, emotionally, spiritually, to share our hearts and to know we're safe in our marriage. And if you can put that technology down, I think we can find a place to begin to get safe in our marriage.
Yeah, and yet it's not natural. I mean, what's become natural is looking at our screens, at our surfaces. It's interesting. Barb and I spoke in Hawaii a couple of years ago. Somebody had to go, so we went. And the military brought us out. We have done a lot of work with military marriages, both general military marriages as well as wounded military. And we have taken our great marriage experience to these very unique populations. And somebody that was in leadership of the chaplaincy corps on the islands of Hawaii gathered the Navy and gathered the Air Force and from the Pacific Fleet. And so we had, there are several hundred different psychologists, psychiatrists, physicians, therapists, social workers, people that were working with the troops. And I was speaking to a leader in the military, and I said, what do you think about the readiness? Tell me what you think is going on with that 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old sailor, Marine, soldier. What's the deal? And the admiral didn't bat an eye. He said, Gary, the main thing that we're dealing with is that there's such an addiction and a dependency upon screens that when the mental health stuff starts to rear up, or you have a sailor who's 19 years old and they start to get stressed out or frustrated, the number one thing that many of them do is they come to the end of themselves. And sometimes they threaten suicide. Sometimes they suggest that they have a meltdown because they don't know what to do to communicate to get through to the other side.
Interesting.
Well, it was fascinating. And it was tragic. And there was a captain, a female therapist who was a captain with him when I asked this question. And she said, it used to be when we would get a 911 that somebody was suicidal, it was like all hands on deck. We all flew over there. But now what we're learning is that the lack of capacity to communicate and resolve complex problems and to interact and to depend upon other people and to get feedback and to show empathy. And they said, Gary and Barb, that's why you're here. That's why we brought you, so you could talk to us about those skills and remind us of those. Because given to our own understanding, a lot of these young people, they're just not connecting interpersonally because they're spending so much time connecting to the screen. And that's leading to depressions, it's leading to withdrawal, it's leading to suicidal ideation.
Isolation, resentment, bitterness, anything when you're alone and then you're alone with your own thoughts for too long without this. We're made for one another and community. So as we are traveling further from that, it's no wonder we're in the place that we truly are in today. So, Gary, we've talked about the saboteurs.
Yeah, so when you look at technology and you look at the psalmist, in Psalm 46:10, it says, "Be still and know that I am God." Think about it. For any of us, how much time do you have that's still time? And Barbie, you said it a little bit ago, if it's a quiet time or still time, we'll pick up the screen and start scrolling. Well, we didn't do that until 15, 20 years ago. We didn't pick up a screen and start scrolling. What we did is we reflected, we meditated, we rested. We spent time in prayer. We spent time in listening.
We were having fun with friends and laughing and doing things. We've changed our entire culture.
So technology is a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's a good deal, but it is really a saboteur of connecting us, bridging us, opening our lives up to one another and sharing our lives with one another.
So especially with the husband and the wife. So one of the things that we would coach you is at bedtime, turn off the screens and turn to one another. And, all of the research is indicating, hugs, holding each other, praying together, listening to each other, interpersonal communication. Now, I know when my body goes horizontal, I'm out within minutes. So Barb doesn't have a long window.
Gary has said his prayers and he's out like a light.
Yeah, I'm out like a light. I don't have any trouble going to sleep. And in fact, I've been asleep, during some of these podcasts in the back. No, I'm just kidding you. But you know what? We want to reduce it within families, within marriages. We want to learn how to curtail some of the technology. So pace, technology. Do a heart check. How are you doing on those? Barbie, what's number 3?
Well, number 3 is proximity to your mate. And just because you live in the same house and you're sharing the same roof does not mean that you're automatically connected. There are times that we don't know how to resolve conflict. We are avoidant with one another. We may not talk to one another for several hours. It could be that you're retreating for any number of reasons. It could be over lack of knowing how to resolve conflict. It could be that you just don't know how to connect. You're just same old, folks. You may feel like you have a low-grade fever in your marriage. And a lot of couples do, simply because it's just a dull atmosphere. Yeah. And they're not coming alive. If this is something that you're open to, then we need to make sure you take some practical checkups during the day. And we've talked about holding your heart before. I was looking to see if we had a heart on our desk here. We don't. But, when you get into a communication mode with one another and you are making time in those 2 chairs that we've talked to you about, we've talked about language around holding one another's hearts. It could be that once you're really safe with one another and you've got the beautiful reservoir of an account filled up in your heart, you can turn to one another during the day and say, hey, how's your heart?
Yeah.
I mean, for some of you, you're going, oh, I would never say that to my husband, or he'd just roll his eyes. Well, maybe get to the point where you're working on safety and building trust in your marriage, so that there are times where you can go to the deeper places and you can communicate over things that hurt or things that you have more emotion around, so that you've got the comfort, and comfort's a very key word to a woman. We need the comfort of going through things together and not alone. That's a win in the marriage.
Yeah, Barbie and I each listen.
Barbie?
Barbie and I each tried to listen daily
like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
to our friend Tom Dooley read the One Year Bible.
He's good.
And
He's so good.
And so our pattern is I get up, I put on some coffee, I make Barbie coffee, I bring to her in bed. So if you want to be married over 50 years like me, bring your wife coffee in bed. But then Sophie, who's only 2 years old, who's in the studio with us, looks at me like it's time to go out.
Not a child, a dog.
And so I put in my earplugs, and after I've had some coffee, and I take Sophie for a walk, and I listen to Tom Dooley do the One Year Bible. And he just started Song of Songs. And I told Barb it was awesome, because he is not only reflecting the woman, the Shulamite woman in there, but he's also reflecting the man. And he goes back and forth and has a little different intonation. And it's fun. And Tom was a disc jockey. He's in heaven now. He was a disc jockey in Dallas, and we knew him as friends and did some events together. And so I just smiled as I listened to him. But listen to this. Song of Solomon, chapter 3, verse 4. It says, I found the one my heart loves. I held him and would not let him go. Now, girlfriend, that's proximity. And when Tom read that the other day, I thought, I like that.
You want me to hold on to you and not let go?
Hang on and don't let go.
I love it.
Yeah. And where I go, you're going.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I'm not letting you leave.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, we stalk each other.
Yeah,
So
I mean, even at this point, we love hanging around each other.
So that's proximity. So
that's proximity.
You got to be in the same place, but you got to be connected.
But you have to communicate. Yeah. It's more than just both of you being at home. It's not you doing your thing and he doing his thing. And of course, we go off and we do our own things. But you know what? When you're together, you want it to be a win.
Yeah.
You flirt with one another. You connect in a language of the heart that nobody else knows about. You've got your own stories.
I like flirting with you, girl.
You remember the old times. You make the new times. And maybe you catch one another. You're dancing. And as you said earlier, you hold on. you just hold on. But it's all about connection.
Yeah.
And that's why we're taking the time to unpack the saboteurs that get in the way, because we want you to have a great marriage. None of this doldrum, none of this low-grade fever stuff. We've got to get that illness out of your home and get the wellness and health back in.
So here's number 4, secrets. And secrets are the termites of your marriage. So just like a termite eats the foundation of your home, and sometimes you don't even know they're there. And then you go to sell the house, or something happens, and you have inspectors come in and they go, you know what, your house has been eroded by these termites. They quietly eat away at the foundation of the trust of the marriage. What James 5:16 says is, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you too may be healed. So secrets, Barbie, I mean, it's hiding finances. It's certainly hiding pornography. It's hiding sexual encounters. I spoke to a group of men early this morning down in Georgetown, Texas on Zoom, and a buddy of mine, a couple that we spent some time coaching and encouraging, and he's calling these guys together. They're meeting in a bar, Barb, down in Georgetown, Texas. One of the guys owns this thing, and my buddy Landon is rocking it. I mean, he's just helping these guys, and they're growing in their marriages. And so he just said, Gary, would you ever come on with us? And, we've read some of your stuff, and they've heard you speak a little bit. But would you just talk to us? And so I had, 8 or 10 guys in there this morning for a little bit over an hour, and it was a blast. And one of the things I talked about was secrets. And I said, guys, when there's secrets, and then I showed them this. And so for those of you listening, make sure you check out the video on our Instagram or Facebook feed. But I said it's like the V. And somebody is going along, a guy is going along, and he gets down to kind of this knuckle. He's living life, and he's doing something that is contrary to God's design for him. And one of two things happens. It either becomes detected, so he gets found out, or he becomes convicted and he confesses. But if you get down to this knuckle and you are found out, or you confess, and you jump over to this knuckle, and then you try to rebuild it, and you don't get all the way down to the core root of it, and I call that the V. It's this place where these two fingers are knit together and webbed together on your hand. If you don't get down to the core of it, then you really are starting to rebuild that relationship on a faulty foundation. And the termites exist down here. And it's because it's dark, and it's quiet, and it's withdrawn. And whether it's a man or a woman, if you try to rebuild on a faulty foundation, when the winds come and the test comes later on, because it will come later on, you're not going to sustain it. Your house isn't going to stand. And so what I was challenging these good guys this morning in Texas was, you guys, no secrets. And then I said, if Barb was here and you were upstairs sleeping, I hadn't brought you the coffee yet.
What time was it? 5:30 in the morning?
Yeah, it started at 6:30.
Give me a break.
Yeah, and I said, but if Barb was here, she would say, no posers, Gary. Tell those guys no posers. And I challenged these guys this morning. This is from Barbie. No posers. Guy, we don't want to be posing in our marriages. We don't want to be purporting that we're one thing when something else is cooking. And if that's the case, then you need the strength of other godly men around you.
But first of all, your wife.
Yeah, well, and you need your wife.
Yeah.
And so what it means is we got to stay confessed.
Yeah.
So what are the secrets that are eroding your marriage? So if it's not pace, and it's not technology, and it's not proximity, we guarantee it's going to be secrets.
It can be secrets.
Well, yeah, that secrets could be one of the other ways that Satan, either in his subtlety or in his overtness, lies to you, because that's all that creep does, is lie to us. That's the only power he's got. I mean, he's got no power over God. He's got no power over you. But he will taunt us. He will tempt us. He will try to distract us and pull us off of message and vision. So what are the finances? What are the struggles? What are the sexual temptations? What is the power? What's the rage? What's the withdrawal? All of those things can lead to secrets. And so we need to build safety, Barb, and commit to a radical honesty.
So when you were talking and showing the V in your hand, I thought, the next time we're sitting in our two chairs, because we do it often throughout the day, and we choose to make time to connect to one another, I'm going to take your hand like this, I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to say, you got anything in there that you need to talk about? Truly, folks, when we seek to desire to align with Christ first, and we confess our sins to Christ first, and from the overflow, He he gives us the wisdom to take it and unpack it with our spouse. And so once you experience the grace of God, and then you're generous in giving the grace to your spouse, when there has been brokenness, when there has been contrition, when there is godly sorrow, but together you can champion so that you live in purity and full disclosure, and you don't have any secrets in there.
Yeah, I was speaking again down in Texas several years ago, and with Steve Farrar and Stu Weber. And Steve wrote Point Man, Stu wrote Tender Warrior, I wrote the book Guard Your Heart. And so we would traverse the country, and we were down at College Station at Texas A&M. And Steve and Stu each spoke on Friday night. We went back to the hotel. And on Saturday, I was kicking off on Proverbs 5, talking about moral purity and guarding your heart. And Saturday night, after we all hit the sack, I'm watching something on ESPN, and I wanted to check a news story. So I clicked over to a news station, and in between the ESPN and the news station were two breasts that were exposed on television on some program. And I looked at it, and I was like, oh, my gosh. And so I took the clicker, and, when you have a clicker, every guy knows how to work the clicker he's got in his family room or his living room or his cave or his whatever it is. But when you're in a hotel, sometimes you push it and, Spanish comes on and then French comes on and then the mute comes on and then Technicolor. I mean, you don't know what button to push. I'm trying to push it. I throw it at the wall. It breaks. I jump up, slam the armoire doors, and I try to sleep. Next morning, I'm having breakfast with Steve and Stu, and they're messing around. They're telling jokes. They're laughing. You know why? Because they were clean. I was tighter than a drum because something was here and it wasn't confessed. And I knew that God was not going to bless the work that he had called me to do that day. And so we get in the van. We're headed over to the Coliseum deal at A&M. And I tell the driver, turn back, drop me off, tell the worship team to keep going. And I remember Steve or Stu said, did you forget something? I said, no, the problem is I can't forget something. And they said, well, what's cooking? I said, I'll tell you after I tell Barb. And I went back up to my room, called Barb, woke you up. It was a Saturday morning because I wasn't bringing you coffee, so, you weren't getting served. And I said, Barb, I need to tell you something that happened last night. And I started to confess this. And do you remember what you said?
Yes, I do. I remember I was awake. I was in my office, actually, and you did call, and you shared with me what happened, exactly what you just said. And I said, Gary, were you pursuing it?
Yeah.
And your answer was?
No, I came upon it.
Right. And I said, Gary.
Yeah, and that's what, 3 times you said Gary.
That's the difference. If you come upon it, it still needs to be confessed because it gets in your brain and your thoughts, and you're so busy trying to push it away that you can't do it on your own. And if your wife and men, as you had in your very best friend, Steve, and Stu as well, and you could unpack it with them. But I said, go out there and preach from your heart because you're clean. Now, if you were pursuing something like that, I'd kill you. But you know what? I know you.
She has special cutlery just for those kinds of anatomy.
I have special instructions that I've given you. But the truth of the matter is that, folks, when we go through these terrible things together, and especially if it's pursuing you and you're not pursuing it, I mean, you got to talk it through as a married couple and figure out through Christ where the freedom is.
Well, I got over to the arena, and Steve and Stu, the band was still playing. I mean, they were just cracking up like Rosberg. We didn't know if one of us should start speaking, but you said you'd come. What happened? Did you tell Barb what happened? I said, yeah. And they said, well, what happened? And I told them. And they went, and you called Barb? And I said, yeah. And they said, now you're ready to go out there and preach that message. You see, God wants us surrendered. He does his best work when we're surrendered. He does his best work when we mess up. He does his best work, listen to me, when Satan no longer has a foothold in your heart, your chest, your experience, your soul, your spirit. When Satan is disclosed and our sin is disclosed and it is confessed, you know what? Satan runs because he loses all power. But I'm telling you something else. You need to run to the foot of the cross whenever those temptations and when there are issues. Now, some of you are sitting back saying, Rosberg, I'm going to go home right now and I'm going to confess something to my wife. Get good counsel.
Maybe you need to, yes.
Yeah, and maybe you need to, but be wise, be discerning. Talk to your pastor, talk to your counselor.
But talk to your wife.
But talk to your wife and receive. And then wives, in this situation, I'm talking about a man, meaning a guy like me. What I needed, and I had no idea I would have it. And Barb, when I asked you if you remembered it, and you did. And then I said, do you remember what you said? When she said, Gary, Gary, Gary. And I don't think you've ever said Gary, 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 other than that in 50 years. That's the only time I remember you saying that. But I was on the edge of my seat with, what is she going to say? And you know what she modeled there? And it's for every woman out there and every guy that is on the receiving end of this stuff. She modeled unconditional love. She modeled that she knew that the lover of my soul, Jesus, loved me enough to disclose whatever my eyes were laid upon, because it was impacting. Even though I wasn't pursuing it, it was still in there. And you know what? That's how the enemy works. That's how our brain works, and it's hard. But Barbie, to your credit. Number 5, and it's connected to this, because a secret can lead to number 5, the 5th saboteur, and that's self-protection. It's self-protection. Honey, talk about that one.
Well, it can sneak up on you because maybe we're afraid of getting hurt. And that makes sense to me. So when somebody has hurt you, it could be in your marriage or it could be outside your marriage repeatedly, and you see them coming. I don't know about you, but I'm thinking, I sure don't want to be hurt. So I build up a wall of self-protection just because I don't want them or their ways to rule over me.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, in marriage, if we keep the wall up, it's going to divide us.
Yeah.
And somehow we need to tear it down so that we can get the bridge. I mean, we might need to discuss things. We may need to talk about things so that we feel safe, so that we can be vulnerable in our marriage. I want to read you a scripture. It's so great. Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 says this: do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility think more of others than you do yourself.
Yeah, that's
so
incredible.
when I look at Gary and I think, I'm going to choose to walk in humility, and this is hard because I really want to build up a wall of defense right now. But somehow I've got to go low. And as some will say, when you go low, you're going high in Christ. So when you go low, you're seeking what is best for my marriage. What is the bridge? Would the bridge possibly be being more transparent with your thoughts, what you're thinking about, or vulnerable with your emotions, what you're feeling, and the why behind your behavior of wanting to build that wall? So make every effort to tear down the wall of self-protection so that you can build the bridge carefully to rebuild the trust and create safety in the marriage.
Yeah, and keep in mind something, guys and ladies, that every time you invest in your relationship, every time you deposit those 20-minute discussions, every time you deposit holding each other's heart, every time you deposit turning off your screens, every time you deposit choosing us rather than yourself, here's what you're doing. You're building a reservoir that when stress and difficulty and pain and disappointment rear its ugly head, you've got the antidote in there. You've got enough resiliency in your love bank. You got enough money, to pay the extra currency that you're going to pay relationally because the relationship is under stress. And so you want to build the reservoir so that when you do draw upon it, there's enough there to handle it. And if you're self-protecting all the time, you're not building the reservoir. There's nothing in the bank, the love bank. And so build it in the love bank. We're going to give you one more. The 6th saboteur is disconnected hearts. Now, Barbie and I have been coaching you for a long time in these podcasts, and we talk about the core of a great marriage is heart-to-heart connection. So when our hearts drift apart and they disconnect, everything else unravels. And I told the guys this morning that were on Zoom with me as I was coaching them early, the guys down in Texas, that on my tombstone, we've already had it engraved, and it says, guard your heart. It's my life verse. So it's got the year I was born. It's got my name. Barb's is right next to it. It's got her date of birth, a dash, and then, of course, we're still here, so there's no second set of dates of the date of God calling us home. And Barb's got a verse on hers. She can talk about that sometime. But mine is guard your heart. And when I look at Proverbs 4:23, here's what the writer says. Above all else, guard your heart, for it's the wellspring of life. Everything you do flows from the heart. So when the heart is disconnected in your marriage, when the heart is disconnected from Christ, when the heart is disconnected from the power of the Holy Spirit, when the heart is disconnected from community, when the heart is disconnected from surrender, when the heart is disconnected from the intimacy of a relationship with Christ, then all bets are off. And so then when temptation comes or trials come or whatever, it can take us out. So being connected means that we choose to not lean into disconnection, but we run towards connection.
I'd like to also add that we are made for connection. So if you are disconnected in your marriage to your spouse, who or what are you connecting to outside of your marriage? Because you will connect. I think especially women, we are so made to connect. So you can drift and you can find someone that's giving you more attention, more of a listening ear. Maybe for a man, someone that laughs at your jokes. Maybe they're not that funny, but maybe there is someone that is being your audience where it's really meant for just us in our marriage. Gary, I also think about those that are in friendships or outside of our marriage. We want to connect to people that have similar marriages, similar values, similar constructs, values where there isn't a spirit of criticism. There is a blanket of forgiving love in marriage, that you're growing together and you're growing tighter in your marriage.
Yeah, that's good.
And not staying at a troubled entropy where you've got it's like a low-grade fever. And for some people, it's a high-grade fever. So be careful who you connect to outside of your marriage, because you could bring elements into your marriage that don't belong there.
So what are the saboteurs? It's pace, it's technology,
Proximity.
It's proximity.
It's secrets, Gary.
Secrets, it's self-protection, and a disconnected heart. So what we would encourage you to do is to do a heart check. How are you doing on those 6 areas? Where do you need to put those on the table between you and your wife with a cup of coffee, your favorite beverage, whatever, sitting on a park bench with an ice cream cone, and just saying to one another, you know what, I want a marriage that goes the distance. I want a marriage that glorifies Christ. I want a marriage that, when I'm done, is not going to bring dishonor to God, but it's going to bring honor to God. And so let's be teachable. We're so grateful that you are listening to this podcast. We ask you to download it and register for our podcast so you keep getting them. Share it with other people. I know you know people right now that need to hear what we just said. And that's because God gave it to us. So we encourage you. We're cheering you on. We're praying for you. And continue to guard your heart. So we'll see you next time on the Rosbergs, your marriage coaches.
Hey listeners, make sure to stay up to date with the Rosbergs by subscribing to their show, Your Marriage Coaches, on any major podcast platform such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you will get an alert each time a new episode is released. Whatever platform you're listening on, please rate the podcast and leave us a review.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Rosbergs, Your Marriage Coaches, with Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg. To find out more, go to americasfamilycoaches.com. Once you're there, you can check out the many resources that they have available. From their many books to their informative video series, 6 Secrets to a Lasting Love, they've got all the tools you need to help you grow deeper in your relationship with your spouse and with God. Go to americasfamilycoaches.com and click on the Resources tab. Also, if you have a marriage question, you can call 855-ROSBERG and leave a message with your question. We may use your question on a future episode. We appreciate your prayers and support for this ministry. Find out how you can come alongside us when you go to americasfamilycoaches.com. Just search the top of the index for the Donate tab. Thank you for listening in today. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of The Rosbergs, Your Marriage Coaches, with Gary and Barbie Rosberg.